Okay. We can edit this part out. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. When and where were you born?
When I was born. Okay, so I guess you want to know how old I am. I was born September 11th, 1946. I was born on my father's birthday. I was born in Detroit, Mount Carmel Hospital, Detroit, Michigan.
Did your parents tell you anything about the day you were born?
I don't remember. That's a problem when you're older. Your parents are gone. You can't ask.
Yeah.
I guess when they brought me home, I had an older sister, 2 years older, and she sat in the chair and got to hold me. She was real excited.
Oh, okay. Where did you live most of your childhood?
I lived mostly in Fairview Park, Ohio, which is a suburb west of Cleveland. I lived in Detroit for 5 years, and then my father was one of 5 engineers that was transferred to Cleveland to open up a plant in Brooklyn, Ohio. And so then we moved there when I was in kindergarten.
Oh, okay. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have an older sister, Kit, 2 years older. My brother is 7 years younger, Curtis. And then my baby sister, Cindy, who is 9 years younger.
Describe a memorable experience from your childhood.
One of the most memorable and scary incidences was when I was lost. My parents lived in a duplex, and the person that lived upstairs was Mary Ann. She really liked me. So Mary Ann took me shopping. So this was in Detroit, so I was less than 5 years old, or just turned 5. She took me shopping, and I remember she had me sitting in a chair in a department store. It was just women's clothes. I was sitting in a chair coloring in my coloring book. And then I looked around and I got nervous because I didn't see her and I didn't know where she was. Apparently, she was in the dressing room. I was in the main part of the store, which you wouldn't do that in these days, but back then that's what happened. So I remember going out a revolving glass door to look for her, and I remember walking down the street and the curb seemed really high because I was just a little tyke. And there were all these people walking. I remember the men in suits with their hats. That's how they dressed back then all the time. And a lady came out of a place that I think it was a drugstore or something like that in a white uniform and asked me if I was lost, and I said I was. So they called the police. They took me to the police station, and I was happy then because they had a red crayon because I didn't have a red crayon. And my parents came with Marianne to get me, and I remember my dad kind of spanking me when I was going up the stairs. I don't know if we lived downstairs or upstairs, but I remember I was going up the stairs, and I thought, why am I in trouble? I was looking for this woman that had disappeared. Anyway, so that was a very memorable.
Well, now let's talk about your teen years.
Oh boy.
What were the dating practices like? Did you have to ask permission from your parents, or
Ask permission to date?
did they have to meet your dad, or yeah? What was it like?
Oh yeah, they had to meet my parents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, my parents, well, I remember one of the first boyfriends, my mom approved of him, and then another one, she didn't like him at all, but I still went with him.
That's funny. Let's see. So, describe the first person you dated or your first dance.
First person I dated was Dennis Holzer. He lived across the street from me.
Oh, okay.
And we went, his father drove us to the movies. I can't remember the movie, but then he drove us to the Franklin's ice cream store. And he sat out in the car while Dennis and I had ice cream inside. I think it was like 12 years old.
Oh,
Or, I was real
that's
young.
sweet.
I don't know. Maybe it was older,
That's
but
sweet.
that's what I think.
What was the most difficult part about being a teenager for you?
How to handle the boys
Oh,
and the girls.
yeah.
I mean, how to fit in. Um, the boys were attracted to me, so I didn't know how to handle that. And the girls, I was very shy, so it was just hard.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense. I'm shy too. During your teen years, what did you like to do for fun?
I don't really remember what I did that much. I do know I like to play tennis, and I used to. I had a boyfriend, Mark, and I would try to get him to play tennis with me, but he was embarrassed carrying a tennis racket. I don't know. That was back in the 60s, so what do I know? I can't remember. I just
Yeah.
liked, I don't really remember that much about what I liked. I liked to go to dances.
All right. No, we're
They
talking.
used to have dances in this community
Yeah.
center. It was a community cabin called Bain Park. And it was this big old log cabin type place. And they would have dances there in the summertime. And that was fun.
Oh, okay. So section 4 now. What was your first paid job and how old were you?
My first paid job was as a babysitter. Don't you want to know what I made?
Oh, we skipped a section. We're gonna have to go back.
Oh,
Do you want to go back now or do you want to wait?
I don't care.
Okay. What was your early childhood, section 2? What was it like to grow up in your hometown or neighborhood?
I don't remember Detroit that much. But when we moved to Fairview Park, we moved into a little 2-bedroom bungalow on West 212th Street. And there were several girls in that neighborhood. Um, Cheryl Winter, Babe Kelly, Joan Haviland. I don't know. That's those are the names I remember. What's the question again? What?
What was it like to grow up in your hometown or neighborhood?
So we would go outside and play, and I remember my older sister would come out, and they all kind of catered to her because she was older and I was shy. So I remember not liking that. But we played outside, rode our bikes.
Oh, okay. Tell me about your early schooling.
Like grade school?
Yeah.
Well, I don't. The kindergarten in Detroit. I remember a sandbox inside, and I remember a piano. But that's all I remember. When I went to Fairview Park, I went to Garnett School first, and then when I was in third grade, we moved to Eaton Road in Fairview Park, and then I went to Gillisweet. So I remember getting in trouble one time because Cheryl and I, at the first school, we thought it would be cool to carve our initials in the desk.
Oh no.
Just our first, the first letter of our first name, and I put a big S and she put a big C, and we got in trouble. I remember that, and then I remember we would have milk, those little milk cartons,
Yeah.
and I spilled milk one time, and the teacher yelled at me, and I remember my mom was upset about that because she yelled at me in front of everybody.
Did you have any heroes when you were growing up?
Well, when I was in fifth grade, we went to Washington, D.C., And I had written a letter to President Eisenhower to see if I could meet him, and I got a letter back from him.
Wow.
And I don't remember what he said exactly.
Yeah.
I've got it somewhere in a scrapbook.
Okay.
But
We'll find it.
he couldn't meet with me. He was too busy.
That's fair.
So when we grew up, we were Republican. So when Kennedy ran to be president, I remember talking. I was like in middle school, I think, and I remember talking to everybody about can't have him because then just the Pope will be running our country because he was the first. He's a Catholic. So I remember that. But as I got a little older, I did like the Kennedys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Well, we had Superman back then and Lassie.
Oh, yeah, Superman. Lassie.
Yep.
Yep. All right, now we'll go to section 4. We did a little out of the pathway we were supposed to, but what was your first paid job and how old were you?
My first paid job was babysitting. But you ask how old I was. I don't know, maybe 12, 13.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But I want to tell you how much money I made.
Yeah?
I made $0.25 an hour.
Sounds like a lot.
$0.25 an hour back in the 50s. And then I got a raise. I got up to 50 cents an hour when I was babysitting. So a lot of girls started with babysitting. But then my first job outside of babysitting, I worked for the Higbee Company. And I got a work permit when I was 15, and I worked 2 nights a week and the weekends at the Higbee Company selling women's clothes.
Okay. And what was your last paid job and how old were you?
I worked at Community Mental Health, and I was quite a bit older. Oh, man. So that first paid job, my mom wanted me to work that because she thought it would help me become more assertive because I was really shy all through school. I'm not shy anymore, but I was. My last paid job, I worked at Community Mental Health. I was a nurse in the training unit where I taught classes, and I would help create classes and taught them. And I retired when I was 72. So the reason I worked that long is because I only worked 20 hours a week since I was 60. So it was kind of like semi-retirement. I couldn't have worked 40 hours a week back then. Mm-hmm. I mean, for that long.
All right. Well, what were your hobbies as a younger adult, and have they changed over the years?
Oh, my parents had us in all kinds of things. I actually think I was a pretty privileged kid because I did a lot of things with my sister Kit. So we were the girls. Grandma would make us, my mother's mother, would make us identical outfits. And everybody talked about the girls. So we had horseback riding lessons, dancing lessons. I don't know, what are all the different lessons you have? I don't know. Tennis lessons. I remember we had ballet lessons, and I loved ballet, and I was really upset because my mother made me quit because my sister Kit quit, and she didn't want to just drive me separately, so we'd always drive together to do these things. Or she would drive us, I mean.
Oh, that sucks.
It did suck because I wanted to be a little ballerina.
It's never too late. All right. Let's see. And have your hobbies changed over the years?
Oh, yeah. So I had I forgot the music part because I had piano lessons. I started violin in 4th grade. And I played violin all the way up through my junior in high school, and then I quit because I thought it wasn't cool anymore. I was second chair, and piano. I played that, but I didn't play that as long. Um, I picked up the piano again when I got divorced. I remember I would just pound on the piano because it was kind of therapy. And I have an upright piano in my house because I kept thinking when I'm retired I'm going to play the piano again. But I've been retired for a few years and I haven't touched it. The violin, wouldn't know how to play that, but I have picked up the ukulele. That's a lot easier to play. I tried to play the guitar, it's just too much. Ukulele is a nice little instrument. And I've always loved singing and dancing. So I sing now. I do karaoke. I've been in choirs and things. I was in a band for a while, but a long time ago. Um, and now, you're asking my hobbies now, right?
Yep.
So now I play more cards. Since I moved to Michigan, so I grew up in Ohio, but born here in Michigan. I had discovered euchre, so I play euchre. I used to play bridge. In college, I played bridge, and after, excuse me, I gotta get a drink.
You're right.
Last year, I tried to play bridge again and decided it was just too much thinking. I'm too serious. When I play euchre with my friends, we just laugh and we're not that serious. So card playing, the ukulele, I do water aerobics, and I'm politically active.
So very musical your whole life.
Yes.
That's good. All right. So
And I got my dad's, so I was the most musical in the family. My father was a good singer. He had a banjo that he got secondhand when he was young, like maybe 20 or I don't know. It's a Gibson, an old Gibson banjo, and he played in a 100-piece banjo group. So I inherited the banjo because I'm the only child that really was that interested in music. But the banjo is in the closet. The piano still sits here, but I have my ukulele.
All right, section 5, and then we got one more section, and that's it. Section 5 is history. What major U.S. world events do you remember?
Oh, Kennedy being shot.
Yeah.
That's one. If you went through it and you were a certain age, that's when everybody remembered where they were. I was in Mr. Lathrop's study hall, which was in the auditorium, and they came in and told us about it. So that was a major thing. McCarthyism, I don't know if I was too aware of that. What major events? Oh, when I was a child?
No, through your whole life.
Oh, well, the walking on the moon, that happened like a month before I got married. I remember that. We watched that on TV. Oh my gosh, there's been so many things that have happened in my life.
You don't have to list them all, but...
Okay, Vietnam War, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I had guys in my class that went to the Vietnam War. And one of my good friends was severely injured, and I was sad.
Well, what are 2 of the most important changes you have seen during your lifetime?
The way, the freedom that people have. Back when I was first married, I couldn't get a credit card unless my husband signed for it, and there are a lot of restrictions on women. There was a big double standard. There's still a double standard, but it's not as huge. In fact, tonight I was reading this paper a friend showed me about how to be a good wife in the 50s. I wasn't a wife in the 50s. I was a wife in the 60s, but we had advanced, but it was still, we had that kind of a background. It was a big change because I came of age right when everything was changing. We knew how we should be in the 50s, and then the 60s came along. And so the other part of what's the major events were the riots and Martin Luther King and Robert F. Kennedy all them being shot also. The 60s were very active, violent.
It sounds like it. How do you think your family life has changed over the years?
When I was growing up, my parents got married young, stayed married forever, and they stayed together. My dad didn't want my mom to work, so which was fine for us because she was a stay-at-home mom, and we always had a good dinner. We sat at the table every night. There are no phones at the dinner table, no watching TV while we're eating.
No cell phones back then.
No cell phones. So she had meat and potatoes and a vegetable. She almost always had a Waldorf apple salad and a little lettuce salad, and we would drink milk. So, and in the morning she would make eggs for us. She had me start drinking coffee in the morning because I would have a hard time getting up. But I remember she would say, "Susan, your eggs are getting cold." She called me for breakfast because I didn't want to eat cold eggs. So that's the little nuclear family, and we talked to each other. So it was very different. Now I sit in the living room and eat my dinner in front of the TV. So it's just not the same. And
Yeah.
the phone is a big interference. There were no video games when I was growing up. We played board games, and I missed that. And I think we've become addicted to the internet and phones and TV, and I'm guilty of it also.
Lots of changes then, it sounds like. Alright, so this is the last section now. What do you think are the most important problems facing the world today?
Oh my God. Our president. I don't know how political I should be on this interview, but it's just our alliances, our allies are not our allies anymore. We're changing positions. Trump has said he's king. He's set out to ruin our country, and he's doing a darn good job of it. But it's been very upsetting, of course. So that was another. As my older years, I got active politically, and I've done protests and carrying signs and all that good stuff. I feel very grateful that I got to live in a country with all of its flaws. It still was a great country, and I got to enjoy all of it, and I see it falling apart. So I just have to be grateful for what I had while I had it. I worry about my children and granddaughter and the future. I forget the question. I get rambling here. What was the question?
What do you think are the most important problems facing the
Oh,
world
yeah.
today?
So I
fine.
worry about the climate change. I worry about the direction our country is going in. I worry about losing our democracy. I worry about voter fraud, all of this, and the misinformation and conspiracy theories, and just so many things that I worry about. But I'm not constantly worried about it, but I know it's there, and it's very sad.
Tugging at your shirt coat. Yeah. What is the best and worst thing about becoming an older adult?
Well, I have a lot of experiences. So I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to give to people, but who's listening? So, um, I don't care so much anymore about fitting in. I mean, I want to get along with people, but I don't worry that much about how I look. I mean, I should worry about it more, I guess. When I was younger, like when I went to college, I lost weight and I was skinny as a bean. And, you just had to look your best and all that stuff. And now it's not as important to me as it was. So that's kind of a good thing. I'm more relaxed about things. I'm more knowledgeable. I find I'm very interested in history, presidential history too, and like the history of our country in particular. So I find that really interesting. What was the question?
Oh, so you said.
What was the question?
What is the best thing and worst thing about becoming an older
Oh,
adult?
so the worst thing.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like not remembering, like I just did.
Okay.
Sometimes I will kind of like try to figure out a word, but yet on the whole, I think I'm smarter than I've ever been because I am more involved. I started. Oh, yeah, that's another thing that I like to do. I started a trivia group, so I was doing that tonight because it's one of the few places you can share your knowledge that's stored in your head somewhere. So the bad stuff is that I have less life to look forward to. I have more aches and pains, and it's easier to gain weight, and yeah, don't have as much stamina and energy as I did when I was younger. I had a lot of stamina when I was younger. I used to like to do a lot of hiking. I had this one boyfriend we lived in Chicago, and we drove up to Canada and camped all the way across to the Pacific Ocean and then down into the States again. And it was 6 weeks we were gone. And I remember one hike, I hiked 12 miles one day. But
oh, wow.
I don't remember any others. But I can't do that anymore.
All right, you ready for the last question?
Mm-hmm.
If you could give one piece of advice to younger adults to prepare them for older adulthood, what would it be?
Only one?
Yeah.
Put down your damn phone and your video games. Try to read, interact with people. We are losing the ability to communicate. Try to be as healthy as you can. I was raised with my mom making all of the food from scratch. I'm sorry my children did not get that. but I had a very good start. And so I think that's really important because I know people younger than me that are their bodies are just falling apart. And I think because I had a good start and I was very active, that I'm still pretty good, but I have to stay active. Yeah. So I think that's really important, and study, learn as much as you can. They try to make education is kind of not as important.
Yeah.
And I think try to learn as much as you can, because you want to be able to, when you talk to people, you want to be able to sound like you know what you're talking about. You want to be knowledgeable. You want to be healthy and be kind to people, because we're all different than everybody's. A lot of people have a lot of heartache. As you get older, you've got a lot more things, as you've had a lot more time to have heartache, right?
Yeah.
So just be kind to people. Try to read more, try to interact more, enjoy life. Get out in the fresh air, walk, and be happy. Try to help others be happy.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate it. Awesome.